Are the Florida Gators sabotaging the Ole Miss versus Oklahoma game? FanDuel thinks it's happening. I will explain.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast out there. I'm your host, Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member as well. On today's show, we're going to break down what to watch for in the Ole Miss versus Oklahoma matchup and why this game keeps growing in importance. Next, we'll dive into some of the keys that the Rebels must execute to pull off a huge road win in Norman, Oklahoma at historic Owen Field. But first, let's talk about that betting line that continues to move in Oklahoma's favor, why that's happening, and why I believe it's a trap. And yes, believe it or not, Florida is to blame. I'll explain exactly what I mean. All of this and more on today's Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Remember, we're free and available in all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make this show what it is. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. So how could this be the Florida Gators' fault? Everything. How are the Florida Gators trying to sabotage this? And it all comes down to the betting line of what's going on. Right now, as we sit, Oklahoma is a 5.5-point favorite to win the game. The over-under is set at 54.5 points, but that doesn't matter. The betting line being Oklahoma favored by 5.5 points is like, wow, that must happen. A lot of people are betting on Oklahoma to get them to move that way, because the way this works generally on up-in-the-air games, they want 50-50 splits on money. So I was like, okay, there's a lot of people betting Oklahoma in this game. It was a good team, good defense. All of that stuff wouldn't surprise me very much. Well, then I started doing a little research into like the FanDuel stats on the betting of the game. And looking at what's going on, you can see that Oklahoma's favored by 5.5 points, but Ole Miss has 85% of the money that has been bet on Ole Miss. They have 84% of the spread. That's the total number of bets have been placed on Ole Miss. That's a paltry, only 16% of bets have been placed on Oklahoma. Only 15% of the money is being put on Oklahoma, yet the line keeps going up and up. Now, one of the things, whenever that happens, it's a trap. Vegas thinks Oklahoma is going to win this game. That is what they're counting on. They want all the money to come in on the Ole Miss Rebels so that they can make that money. All those big buildings in Las Vegas, they didn't happenstance get there. They weren't already built whenever they arrived. All of these sports gambling stuff is the reason that it was constructed. So if that's a trap, what is Vegas really telling us? And that is they remember 2022. To where all of the Auburn stuff started percolating. Around the Alabama week, really picked up over Arkansas week, and over Mississippi State week, it was just a torrential, just downpour. John Sokolops put out the famous tweet, all of that stuff. But the important thing is Ole Miss played pretty well in a game against the Alabama Crimson Tide. Had the ball in the air with a chance to win that game at the very end. But then against Auburn, they got absolutely drubbed. Against Mississippi State, they got absolutely drubbed. Against Texas Tech, after all this happened, that team had already given up, got absolutely drubbed. They lost 3 consecutive games, and here's the thing. They didn't look good in any of them. They didn't look like anywhere near themselves at that point. Vegas is seeing what's happening, all the noise, all the chatter is going on. Is Lane checked out? Is Florida all invested? Is this a done deal? All of those questions are percolating, and Vegas is betting that Ole Miss is not going to be ready to play. They are betting that Ole Miss is not going to beat the Oklahoma Sooners on Saturday. They are betting that Ole Miss will not have a good game plan set up for that day. They will have a distracted Lane Kiffin. They will have a distracted football team. They think all of this Florida noise is going to distract the Ole Miss Rebels against the Oklahoma Sooners. That's the only explanation for having that kind of money and being that confident Oklahoma winning the game. Oklahoma does not have the best offense in the world. They've got a pretty good defense, but they haven't played a top 50 offense as of yet. So we'll see. But the way it sits right now with FanDuel and other betting services, they are counting on the fact that Lane Kiffin is going to be more focused on the Florida Gators than the Ole Miss Rebels. For better or for worse, that's what they're saying. And we talk about the Florida Gators sabotaging this. They need Ole Miss to lose this game. The Florida fan base needs Ole Miss to lose this game in a very bad way. Because if they want to hop on the Lane Kiffin experience, they need Ole Miss to lose this game, because if they win this game, they're going 11-1. And they're going to the college football playoff. And every card that you can play about why Florida is a better job than Ole Miss, all of a sudden it's out the window. It's gone. Florida fans are heavily invested. That's the reason the noise is so loud right now. That's the reason you're seeing national pundits going, well, it just makes sense that he goes to Florida. This is why all of the Florida fans are creating all this smoke, so they can control the narrative of what's going on. And if Ole Miss loses to Oklahoma, they can. At that point, if Ole Miss loses to Oklahoma, granted, it's only the second loss, but there's probably more coming, if we're going to be honest about it. Ole Miss loses to Oklahoma. Will it be the Florida Gators? I don't know. South Carolina? I don't know. Mississippi State? I don't know. But more losses are coming. It's more likely that a team is 8-4 or 9-3 after a loss to Oklahoma than them being 10-2, regrouping and doing the other. Because all of the negativity and the rumors will really take off at that point. And you'll hear about, see, told you that Ole Miss was not going to be competitive. Remember, this was supposed to be a rebuilding year, by the way. This was supposed to be a happenstance year to make the college football playoff. Now they've moved the goalpost to the point where if Ole Miss doesn't make the playoffs this year, Lane Kiffin should leave, because Ole Miss is a crap job and they'll obviously will never do it. That is what we're dealing with this weekend, people. That is what we need to avoid. And the way you stop it is by beating the Oklahoma Sooners. In Owen Field, Gaylord Family Stadium, the whole 9 yards, whatever they call it, the Palace on the Prairie, getting the win is going to be the most important thing. The Locked On host at Locked On Sooners, who's been on the program a couple of times, honestly, kept mentioning the first half. Last year's Oklahoma team was winning at halftime over Ole Miss, as if that held any relevance whatsoever to this game. Ole Miss didn't play particularly well in that game against Oklahoma, that game. It was a morning kickoff. For whatever reason, they haven't been able to perform at that time slot. But Trinidad Chambliss, Jackson Dart, Trey Harris, the receivers that Ole Miss have, the running game that Ole Miss has, I tried to explain to him that this is a completely different Ole Miss offensive team. And I think I did a pretty decent job, but I had to explain it to him over and over again, because last year leading at halftime is absolutely irrelevant to how this game is going to play out. Listen, Brent Venables has a good defense, genuinely good defense. They attack, they play matchups. They're going to try and figure out a way to make that defensive line disruptive for Ole Miss. The offensive line better pack a lunch, period. But the way it's set going off last year, Ole Miss probably is a better football team than the Oklahoma Sooners. Now, that's not a guarantee that Ole Miss is going to win. That's not a guarantee of anything happening. But if the game was played on paper, Ole Miss should win this game. It's kind of like the paper metrics all said that Ole Miss offensively was going to come out and deal against the Georgia Bulldogs. And lo and behold, they did. 5 touchdowns in their first 5 drives. I imagine this will be a similar thing, and we'll talk to the Locked On Sooners people on tomorrow's podcast. We'll do the Why Ole Miss Wins thing on Friday's podcast, and we'll get ready for the football game and the live streams on Saturday. But I am curious to see exactly how this goes. If Ole Miss can block out that noise. Because Florida fan, desperate for Ole Miss to lose this game. The last thing they need is Ole Miss making the playoff, because you know why? Lane Kiffin isn't going anywhere if he's in the playoff. The only way that they have a shot is by Ole Miss going 9-3 or 8-4. That's the only way that they can get Lane Kiffin. And they're going to try. They're going to be noisy. You're going to see national pundits. You're going to see all of the Army on the brand of Florida come out. But is Florida a better job for Lane Kiffin? Not overall. Do they have money and population and all that? Is it a better job for Lane Kiffin? No, it's not. It's not even a little bit of a better job for Lane Kiffin. So Florida fans will play the game. You cannot win a championship at Ole Miss. And if Ole Miss doesn't make the playoff, they can keep playing that card. If Ole Miss makes the playoff, you just got to shut up, Florida fan, because it's just not going to happen. And you have to move on to choice B. But we'll see exactly how it goes. And if Ole Miss can hold off the Florida Gators in this coaching search and beat the Oklahoma Sooners on Saturday, should be a lot of fun. It's at 11 o'clock Central Time on ABC. What will the actual keys on the field be when Ole Miss takes on Oklahoma? And more importantly, what kind of game could Trinidad Chambliss have in this one? He's already shown he can change the tone of a matchup with just a few plays. And against a defense like Brent Venables, that ability to extend drives and create chaos actually might be the difference. So we'll break down the key matchups, the trenches, how Chambliss could tilt the field in Ole Miss's favor, coming up next. You know, Mazda crafts cars for people that do more than simply move. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence throughout almost every season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible kind of becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. It is their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, cross-training with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. I love how the Peloton IQ system offers real-time strength coaching. It actually tracks your reps, suggests the right weights, corrects your form, making every move safer and smarter. The swivel screen, by the way, is a game changer. You can go from running on the Tread Plus to strength training, all without missing a beat. And the personalized class recommendation is helping to keep you engaged. You get workouts tailored to your every vibe and your energy level each and every week. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. Do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on the video. Subscribe to whichever podcatcher you're listening to on this podcast, and give it a 5-star review. Costs absolutely nothing, but it helps keep all of this free. Locked On is getting ready to change the game again, all in the name of having fun following your team. It's coming in December. We'll tell you more about it later. And don't forget to check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college or pro, is ready for you. So I always enjoy doing the keys to the game and the what to watch for episode on Wednesday. The Wednesday, Thursday, Friday episodes of my show, I enjoy immensely. And it's a whole bunch of fun. But this game is kind of different a little bit, because in my opinion, Ole Miss has a better team than the Oklahoma Sooners. Now, it doesn't mean that Ole Miss is going to win. Winning on the road is difficult, no matter what's going on, and turnovers and officiating calls and all of that stuff is going to be something to deal with. All I know is Ole Miss struggled against Washington State. You're going to get to see a better version of Washington State throwing the football with John Mateer throwing on a Ben Arbuckle system. Running the football, they did that against South Carolina, still only averaged about 4 yards per carry. Had a couple of explosives. But when you look at this Oklahoma team, Ole Miss can win the game. Absolutely. And when you look at the keys to the victory, it's not very hard to figure out. First of all, Ole Miss needs to make sure they remove the Florida noise that is absolutely everywhere. This will be the most important thing versus OU. It will. You need to get there, be completely focused on the task that is at hand. I think that's not going to be a problem. Not this week. If Ole Miss were to lose this game, it would be a problem next week. But this week, I expect they will be fairly focused. Now, Trinidad Chambliss handling the Oklahoma pressure, that's going to be important and massive in this game. If it looks like the UGA game for Ole Miss is going to win if Ole Miss can get that kind of pass protection, because Georgia didn't even have a tackle for loss in that game. Not a sack, not a tackle for loss happened by the Georgia Bulldogs. Ole Miss's offensive line played pretty well. And whenever they ran straight at the Georgia defense, just like Gary Patterson said when he came on the show, Ole Miss had a little bit of success doing that as well en route to 2 Kewan Lacey touchdowns. This is going to be a massive game. We talked about how even before you know you're in trouble with the Brent Venables defense. Trinidad Chambliss needs to avoid those traps in this game. If he can do that, Ole Miss will win it. And play a clean ball game against Oklahoma. Make them drive the length of the field to score. Don't give them a single short field. This is a football team that almost makes a living off of their defense turning over the other team and forcing short fields from the other team. If you can avoid that to where they have to drive 60, 70 yards every time they get the ball, that puts the Pete Golding defense back in play. Listen, I think this is a game. Everybody hates the drop 8. I get that. Right now, everybody is getting mad at the drop 8 because of what happened against Georgia, and it makes all the sense in the world. But the reality is Ben Arbuckle is off of a branch of the Mike Leach tree, which is a drop 8 team. So dropping back into coverage, that's going to make John Mateer struggle a little bit, and also put 5 people looking directly in the backfield with him running the ball. The question becomes, can you stop the running game? If you can hold them to 100, 120 yards rushing, you're probably going to be all right. But this is a game, stopping the running game with just your defensive line without having to add extra players into the box. That's going to be a major key in this game. It's going to be a real key in this game. And we'll see exactly how that goes. Again, against South Carolina, they had a 100-yard rusher, and I think they ran for 170 yards overall, which is pretty good for Oklahoma this season. Most of their running game came off of John Mateer prior to the injury. Them running the football is going to be pretty interesting. And teams that throw the football and drop back and do all the air raid stuff, they can struggle when they have to commit to the run game. They can do it for a little bit, but they can't do it over and over again because muscle memory kind of takes over. So we'll see exactly what that looks like and if Ole Miss can handle what's going on. In our final segment, there are a few things to watch against Oklahoma that could define this matchup. Lane Kiffin and Pete Golding kind of both face unique challenges, from slowing down Oklahoma's tempo to finding mismatches against Brent Venables' defense pressure and looks. And with the quarterback situation, it's still kind of one of the biggest storylines. So every snap will be under the microscope, especially with all this Florida stuff that is around as well. We'll talk about the matchups, momentum swings, and the players to watch when the Rebels face the Sooners. All of that and more coming up next. College football is back, and I couldn't be much more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing quite like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hindered fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices, all with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. Listen, I pulled up the Game Time app in just a couple of taps. I saw some amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games for as low as $25. I love zone deals too. Pick a section and Game Time picks the seats. You save a ton. So honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've bought tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. That's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. This game is going to be a fun one, honestly. If you look at the matchups actually on the field, it's going to be a fun matchup. And people that have watched or listened to my show over the last couple of years know that I have a soft spot in my heart for Oklahoma. This is kind of a fun game going against the Oklahoma Sooners. They always make jokes and all that about 2 centuries-old rivals, and Ole Miss has never lost to Oklahoma. The reality is they play twice. Even permanent rival or not, is just kind of silly. But listen, it's like I said, half of my family are from Lincoln, Nebraska. They are huge Nebraska fans. I was told my whole life that if Ole Miss and Nebraska ever played, Nebraska would kill them. Yeah. Ole Miss is undefeated against Nebraska as well. And so in that case, any game that my uncle was watching Nebraska and Oklahoma, he was pulling for Nebraska. Obviously, I was pulling for Oklahoma. Way back when they had, Keith Jackson and Jamel Holloway and all of those guys running the wishbone at Oklahoma, that had my attention. So this game is going to be a lot of fun, seeing a game in Old Owen Field. I think it's Gaylord Family Stadium now, but a game at Owen Field where they used to have like the huge crown of the AstroTurf back in the day, whenever they basically were playing on a hill at that point. Ole Miss playing a game in that stadium is fun to me. So that's what I'm watching for in that game, and kind of taking it in is getting to see Ole Miss on that field, because these storied rivals that have played over the course of 2 centuries, I mean, Ole Miss has never played in that stadium. So I'm interested. It's games at 11 o'clock Central Time on ABC. And if Ole Miss comes out quickly, they have a chance to jump on Oklahoma. And if you can score 30 points on this Oklahoma team, Oklahoma hasn't scored 30 points against anybody since they've been in the Southeastern Conference. So there's a lot of things that I am watching for in this game, but how do you get to the point of Ole Miss winning this game? And I think it's pretty simple, honestly. There's a couple of things that you need to watch for. First of all, this game is going to be about Trinidad Chambliss dealing with the pressure from a good OU defense. If you can avoid turning the ball over, if you can avoid disaster plays, if you can avoid defensive explosives like Ole Miss did a week ago against the Georgia Bulldogs, Ole Miss is going to win this game. If he throws an interception, all of a sudden that leads to a 20-yard short field for the Oklahoma offense, they're likely going to score, and it's going to be more and more problematic the more you do it. This game is going to be about Trinidad Chambliss dealing with pressure. Now, Chambliss needs to use all of his weapons in this game, and I think the tight ends will be of massive importance. I said against Georgia, Ole Miss needed to complete passes to 8 different receivers. They did. Mission accomplished. That absolutely happened. Do that again in this week, and you have a good chance to score and roll as well. I was talking with John Williams from Locked On Sooners, who we're going to do the crossover with tomorrow. But he was asking me about the Ole Miss offense. And I explained, he's like, is Trinidad Chambliss better than Jackson Dart? And I was like, no, but that doesn't mean this offense isn't better than the offense was a year ago. The offense at Ole Miss is head and shoulders above what it was in 2024. Because for as good as Jackson Dart and Trey Harris and all those guys were, they were too reliant on themselves at times. Jackson Dart and Trey Harris, there'd be games where Trey had 11, 12 catches in the game. The next leading receiver would have 2 or 3. This season's different. You're only seeing like 3 or 4 catches, but 8 different players are doing that. So it'll be interesting to see. And finally, block out all of this Florida noise. Just for 3 hours that day, get that win. If you win that game, odds are you're going to the college football playoff. And honestly, you don't even have to worry about this coaching thing anymore, because he's going to be coaching the playoffs. It's what he does. It only gets really weird if you don't block out all of this noise and you lose this game. This is a game that, remember, whenever I made picks back in July, I had Ole Miss losing. I had Ole Miss going 10-2 this season, losing to Georgia and at Oklahoma. So I'm under no illusions that this is going to be an easy test. But Ole Miss can win this game. And if Ole Miss plays well, they will win this game. Don't turn the ball over, no ill-timed penalties. But the place is going to be pretty loud. It's going to be pretty raucous. And it's one of those few times where Ole Miss gets to go play a game in a different place. So it should be a lot of fun. But in this show, as we talked about, the Florida situation with all the rumors and all the noise is sabotaging the Ole Miss football line against the Oklahoma Sooners. Oklahoma's favored by 5.5 now, even though Ole Miss has 85% of the bets and money placed on them, which means it's an absolute trap set by Vegas, and they think that this Florida noise is going to sabotage Ole Miss. Second of all, we went over the keys of the game. Trinidad Chambliss is going to have to be a star in this game, and Ole Miss's defense has to figure out a way to come up with stops. If they can do that, they're going to be absolutely fine. This Oklahoma team isn't the Baker Mayfield or Kyler Murray era Oklahoma teams, but they're a good team. And if you treat them that way, you should be all right in this game. So thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day, and thank you for making it the go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we're the front door of Ole Miss. If you don't believe me, Google Ole Miss podcast and see how much we come up. We're like 85% of that page. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. It helps the show, and it's completely free. Your support means the world to us. In another big moment for Locked On, college football fans, Locked On and Fire TV are presenting College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holly, and Locked On's panel of local experts. A college football preview show that only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Hotty toddy, everybody. And remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.